ब्रह्मानंदं परमसुखदं केवलं ज्ञानमूर्तिं द्वन्द्वातीतं गगनसदृशं तत्त्वमस्यादिलक्ष्यम् एकं नित्यं विमलमचलं सर्वदी साक्षिभूतं भावातीतं त्रिगुणरहितं सद्गुरुं yesterday I promised that today in the first satsang in the morning we will take up a discussion on a text instead of a general satsang. So I want to take up the discussion of not the entire text but a very important part of a certain text, which I consider to be one of the most important sections possible in that particular scriptural text. We will go into it slowly today in this satsang, and if anything is still left, we will continue with the next. I hope to finish meaning not to finish off the text, but to finish the discussion in this satsang. Now, you all know, probably most of you, that the most important, or perhaps the earliest, and perhaps one of the oldest in the world, information on spiritual matters comes from the ancient Rig Veda. Now there are four Vedas: Rig, Yajur, Sama and Atharvana. There are the four Vedas, of which the first one is the Rig Veda. Many parts of the Rig Veda most of the parts are hymns sung by the rishis. In fact, they are hymns partly because the truth cannot actually be expressed in prose. How is poetry born? Because certain things you can't express in prose. So the poetic imagination goes above the ordinary modes of thinking. And therefore, the rishis were also called Kavir Manishi, which means kavis, poets. And they sang, chanted or sang, based upon their inner experiences, which came to them when their minds were in an absolutely quiet and tranquil state. So, the Rig Veda is a statement, is a singing of the poets, the great rishis, who sang about their spiritual experiences, which they directly got into their hearts. Therefore, it is also called the Shruti. Shruti is that which is heard, not that which is read. That which is read and memorized is Smriti. Shruti is that which is immediately heard. If you sing, and if you know classical music, and if you go Besur, then somebody who knows will, if he is decent enough, will say, it's nice, but wo Shruti theek nahi hua. So, that Shruti is so important. And when you play a tampura, all the 5 strings are tuned in such a way, neither too tight nor too loose, so that when you touch it, the Shruti comes. You know that the tampura has only 5 strings, but it has the Shruti of all the 7 octaves, from Sa to Sa and back, Sa to Re and back. So Shruti is so important. Why? Because Shruti is something which the rishis heard immediately from a higher level of consciousness, and not something which they constructed. Whatever came afterwards was constructed by the human intellect to understand and explain the Shruti. So while these explanations may change, interpretations may change, Shruti being the truth does not change. It is always the same. It is always there. So the Rig Veda is a Shruti. And to understand the Rig Veda, you need all the strings to be properly tuned. If I have to understand that Shruti, or you have to understand, the whole process of tuning the strings is sadhana. So that when you touch your fingers lightly, it comes on. So, now in the Rig Veda, which is the oldest of the Vedas, they are all set in certain tunes which are called chandas, certain meters, like all poetry has meters. And the chandas that is most important in the Rig Veda contains a mantra which the rishis have declared is the most important mantra in the Rig Veda. I am presuming that we have got over the superstition that women should not hear it, please. And that mantra, which is the most central part of the Rig Veda, and because of which the Chandas itself is called Gayatri Chandas, is the Gayatri mantra. So that is the text we would love to look at today. Which is why I said we have to keep aside the old luggage that we carry, that this is only for a certain elite and that women cannot listen to it and so on and so forth, or chant it. It's about time one got rid of it. If you ask me why it was so then, there are many reasons. One is that, suppose, you see, one of the things that happens when you chant the Gayatri is that your intelligence becomes fine and sharp and stimulated. Now, if the women's intellects become stimulated, who will look after the kitchen? Somebody has to be there. I'm joking, but at some point, but this is all a completely wrong theory that has been promulgated, propagated and made common. If you read the Valmiki Ramayana, Swami Vivekananda was fond of quoting this. If you read the Valmiki Ramayana, at one point Lakshman says to Rama, I want to discuss certain serious matters with my sister-in-law. Read Valmiki in original. And Rama says to him, brother, you know, you and I sometimes avoid Sandhya, but she doesn't. She is doing her Sandhya Vandana, so you cannot talk to her now. She is very religious about it. You can't do any Sandhya Vandana without the Gayatri. So please don't listen to men. I want to start a chapter when women start chanting the Gayatri. And do it bravely. You don't have to go on the streets and chant. That is not what Gayatri is meant for. It's for internal chanting. Now, the Gayatri mantra is not only the most important mantra in the Rig Veda, it's also the most effective and potent and powerful mantra that you can find in the texts, in the ancient texts. It's very simple. It has only 4 slokas. But these 4 slokas need to be looked at carefully. Apart from the fact that the very chanting, even if you don't know the meaning, has a certain effect, not only on your psyche and your mind, but also on the outside world. If you have the capacity to see things which ordinary people cannot see. Suppose there are many things on this earth which an average person may not be able to perceive. There is no reason why they should be thought away. There are many things. But there are some extraordinary capacities developed by certain individuals who can see things which others cannot see. If such a person is watching someone doing the Gayatri Japa, what he would see or what she would see is that from the heart and from the head, you would see a wave coming out of light in a beautiful deep blue and silver. And you are not deliberately trying to do anything, you are just chanting. And you will see it going through everyone who is sitting around and proceeding further, maybe to touch more. So we believe that the Gayatri has a lot of energy which can be transmitted to the world at large. Now, the Rishi, every mantra has a Rishi, and the Rishi who first heard the Shruti of Gayatri and then taught it to the others was Vishwamitra. You know, Vishwamitra was a Kshatriya who turned into a Brahmana because his gunas became Brahmanical. So this thing about Brahmanical gunas and Kshatriya gunas, it's a question of characteristics rather than birth. Somebody will say, oh, I was born in such and such, but what in your life do you demonstrate a single quality which is associated with being born in such a situation? On the other hand, there may be someone who is born in a completely different situation, who exhibits all the tendencies and characters of someone which is called Brahmanical, for instance. Now, who would you call a Brahmin? The Rigveda says, Brahmavid Brahmaiva bhavati. One who understands the Brahman is a Brahmana. Not one who's performed rituals. And even among Brahmanas, priests are different. Thinkers are different, writers are different. So it depends on one's characteristics, one's character, and not on the genes. It is something you have to understand very carefully. Otherwise, people lead such abject, selfish, stupid, sensuous lives and are proud that they are born in a certain community. Can anything be more utter nonsense than that? Tell me. Of course, there is this, that if you are born in a certain situation, you learn to live in the way the parents teach you. But in the modern world, do parents teach one to live in that? No, they don't. They're doing other things. Okay, so having said this, let's look at the Gayatri as such. Please, anyone who thinks that because of hearing the Gayatri, they will go to Naraga, can either close their ears or go out. Anybody? Oh, I thought you want to go out.